listen, and be honest with yourself for a moment. When was the last time you looked at someone's face? Not their photo, not their curated angle, not their filtered smile, but their actual face, and felt something move inside you? When was the last time you felt present with another human being, without calculating, without evaluating, without scrolling in your mind toward a better possibility? Sit with that question. Don't run from it. There is a tremor in your chest when you ask it honestly, a quiet unease, like the feeling you get when you stare too long into a mirror and suddenly the reflection looks like a stranger. Why do you feel alone when you are surrounded by infinite choice? Why does the abundance of faces make you feel emptier, not fuller? Why does every match, every message, every moment of possibility still leave you with the sense that nothing is actually happening? You swipe, you scroll, you linger on details, a sentence, a smile, a hint of something that might be real. And then, just as quickly, you move on, because there's always another face waiting, another door, another illusion promising something better. You tell yourself this is freedom, that this is empowerment, that this is modern love. But in the silence between swipes, you can feel it. The question, the one you've been avoiding with noise, with motion, with endless possibility. What are you truly searching for? Not the person, not the profile, not the spark. Underneath all of it, beneath the desire, beneath the hope, beneath the hunger for someone to choose you, there is a quieter truth. You are looking for something to silence the ache. The ache of not being seen, the ache of not being understood, the ache of not knowing whether you are enough. Dating apps didn't create that ache. They simply gave it a place to hide, a place to move endlessly without rest. You think you're searching outward, but you're really searching inward, trying to find the part of yourself that you abandoned along the way. There is a loneliness inside you that feels ancient, not born from technology, not born from rejection, born from a deeper wound, the wound of not recognizing yourself anymore. And so you move through profiles, like passing through a hall of mirrors, distorted reflections, small fragments of truth, 1,000 shimmering possibilities that dissolve the moment you try to hold them. You tell yourself, maybe the next one, maybe the one after that, maybe the one after the one after that. But the truth is simpler and heavier. You're not searching for someone, you're searching for certainty. Certainty that you made the right choice. Certainty that you won't be hurt again. Certainty that you won't waste time, waste emotion, waste yourself. You fear disappointment. You fear vulnerability. You fear giving your heart to someone only to discover they weren't who you imagined. And so infinite choice becomes a shield, a fortress built from possibilities, a way to keep your heart safe by never letting it stay still long enough to feel. But a fortress is also a prison, and you felt it. Late at night, after the dopamine fades, after the glow of possibility flickers out, after the silence returns, the strange emptiness, the hunger that no match can satisfy, the eerie quiet that whispers a truth you don't want to face. You don't feel alone because you lack options. You feel alone because you lack connection. Not connection to others, connection to yourself. You have forgotten how to meet someone without comparing them to 100 faces waiting behind glass. You have forgotten how to feel without calculating the risk. You have forgotten how to choose because choice has become infinite, and infinite has become unbearable. There is a moment, a small, piercing moment, when you realize that freedom without direction is just another form of wandering. And in that wandering, you lose yourself. Let that question echo inside you now. Let it settle like dust in an abandoned room. What are you really searching for? When you swipe, when you scroll, when you chase the next possibility, not love, not connection, not even companionship. You are searching for something deeper, something quieter, something terrifying in its simplicity. You are searching for yourself, and that is where the journey begins. A journey not through profiles, but through perception, not through desire, but through awareness, not through choice, but through truth. Here, in this quiet moment, in this stillness, ask yourself the real question. If infinite choice only deepens your loneliness, what is the illusion you're living inside? Hold that question. Let it breathe. Let it haunt you gently. Because the next part of the journey is not about answers. It is about seeing the cycle you've been trapped in without realizing it. You didn't mean to get caught in it. No one does. The cycle begins quietly, the way most storms do. A small breeze, a small curiosity, a small hunger for something more. You tell yourself you're exploring. You tell yourself this is harmless. You tell yourself this is modern life. And you're simply moving with the world. But the cycle was waiting for you. Patient, silent, almost gentle. And it begins with something deceptively innocent. Possibility. The allure of what might be. The shimmer of potential. Not the person, but the dream of a person. A fantasy sculpted from fragments. A silhouette of meaning. It begins with what if, and maybe, and perhaps this time. At first, the flood of options feels like power. It feels like abundance. It feels like being chosen by the universe. You scroll, you filter, you adjust, you refine. You curate a version of yourself that fits inside a tiny glowing frame. And quietly, without noticing, you begin to divide yourself. There is the you that lives in the world, the you that breathes, that hesitates, that feels unsure. And then there is the you that appears on the screen. The polished one, the confident one, the one who never blinks, never doubts, never reveals the tremors behind the smile. You start to fall in love with the version of yourself that doesn't exist. And that's the first cycle. The illusion of identity. Then comes the next. Every time you swipe, your mind rewires itself a little more. Not toward connection, but toward evaluation. Profiles become products. People become possibilities. Hearts become commodities. And you, without intending to, become a consumer of people. You think you're searching for someone, but you are actually searching through them, past them, beyond them, into a horizon that never ends. You believe more choice equals more freedom, but the truth emerges slowly, like a bruise beneath the skin. You thought you wanted freedom. What you wanted was control. Control over rejection, control over disappointment, control over the terrifying vulnerability of choosing someone who could break your heart without warning. Infinite choice becomes your shield and your burden, because once you step into a world of endless doors, every door you choose feels like a loss. If there are 1,000 possibilities, how can one ever be enough? You think you're exploring abundance, but you're actually drowning in it. You scroll like someone wandering in a desert, believing that water must be just a bit farther, a bit deeper, a bit beyond the next dune. But all you find is more sand. That's the second cycle, the illusion of abundance. The third cycle comes disguised as momentum, the feeling that you're moving, progressing, going somewhere. Matches appear, messages are exchanged, connections shimmer with quick excitement and disappear just as quickly. A conversation dies, another takes its place. The silence is never allowed to settle. You hop from spark to spark, never staying long enough to feel the warmth of a real fire. It feels like you're alive. It feels like motion, but not all motion is movement, and not all movement is life. You realize, slowly, you thought you were living. You were only running, running from boredom, running from uncertainty, running from the uncomfortable truth that intimacy is slow, unpredictable, and requires you to be seen as you truly are. Dating apps offer speed, but the heart does not move at that pace. It cannot. It should not. When everything is fast, nothing has time to matter. That's the third cycle, the illusion of progress. But the fourth, the darkest, is the cycle of comparison. This is the cycle that quietly corrodes the soul. You compare yourself to faces you've never met, lives you've never lived, stories you've never heard. Comparison becomes a silent ritual, a measurement of your worth against strangers. You look at your own reflection and find it lacking, not because you are insufficient, but because you've been conditioned to believe someone better is always one swipe away. And then, subtly, terrifyingly, you begin to believe something poisonous. If everyone is replaceable, so are you. That belief enters you like a slow poison, almost imperceptible, almost gentle, and it begins to shape the way you move, with hesitation, with self-doubt, with the quiet desperation to be chosen. Before you disappear into the algorithm, you begin to treat yourself as a product, a brand, a marketable version of a human. You forget that you were once whole. That's the fourth cycle, the illusion of inadequacy. The fifth cycle is subtle, quiet, almost spiritual in its erosion. It is the cycle of detachment. The more faces you scroll past, the more numb you become. You don't mean to detach, but detachment is the mind's way of surviving overstimulation. When everything is loud, you start hearing nothing. When everything is possible, you start believing nothing matters. You become a ghost inside your own life, present, but not touched. You start saying things like, "It's whatever, we'll see, maybe, I'm not sure." Not because you don't care, but because caring feels dangerous. In a world where nothing stays still, to feel deeply is to risk deeply. So you float, hover, drift. Another match, another conversation, another truth that never fully lands. You think you're protecting yourself, but you are actually abandoning yourself. That's the fifth cycle, the illusion of safety. And then, after all the cycles, after all the patterns, after all the slow dissolving of trust, meaning, and self, you encounter the final illusion, the illusion of choice itself. Because eventually, after enough swipes, after enough almost connections, after enough nights staring at a glowing screen, with a hollow heart, you begin to notice something. All the faces blur together, all the stories blend, all the sparks fade. You are no longer choosing, you are circling. You are no longer seeking connection, you are seeking distraction. And the more you seek, the more you lose. Choice becomes chaos. Chaos becomes noise. Noise becomes loneliness. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind that fills your chest. Like slow-moving smoke, heavy and invisible. You stare at your phone and feel nothing. You match with someone and feel nothing. You read messages and feel nothing. Because deep down, beneath all the layers of illusion, something inside you has begun to whisper, "This isn't what I want. This isn't what I need. This isn't who I am." You were not made for infinite superficial choices. You were made for depth, for presence, for the slow blooming of intimacy. But you lost the rhythm, you lost the pace, you lost the silence, where love grows. And so the cycle continues until you see it, until something inside you finally snaps, not in anger, but in clarity. Clarity arrives like a quiet dawn, soft, pale, unavoidable. And in that light, you finally see infinite choice does not give you connection. Infinite choice steals your capacity to choose. You realize that the loneliness you feel is not a failure. It is a signal that the mind cannot love in a world of endless possibility. A signal that the heart cannot open when it is always moving on. A signal that choice without presence is just noise. And so, slowly, you stop. Not because you've given up, but because something inside you has awakened. A deeper voice, a quieter one. A voice that does not seek, does not chase, does not run. The voice that says, "Look inward." Because the cycle does not end when the world changes. The cycle ends when you do, and that is where the descent begins. The descent is not downward, it is inward. A falling not into darkness, but into truth. A soft collapse into stillness. There is a moment when the noise becomes unbearable. Not loud, not sharp, just constant, a hum beneath the skin, a restlessness you cannot shake, a quiet exhaustion that feels older than your body. And you realize, not suddenly, but like a tide rising while you weren't looking, that the cycle has hollowed you out. You look around and everything seems the same, yet nothing feels the same. Faces blur, voices fade. The world continues to move, but you no longer move with it. You slow down, not because you choose to, but because your soul refuses to keep running. This is the descent, not a fall, a surrender, a letting go of everything you thought was protecting you, everything you thought was guiding you, everything you thought made you free. It begins when you sit in silence. Truly sit. No scrolling, no searching, no reaching outward. Just sit and listen to the echo inside your own chest. At first, it feels uncomfortable, foreign, as if you've entered a room you forgot existed. You notice how quickly your mind wants to move, how eagerly it reaches for distraction, how deeply it fears stillness. Because in stillness, there are no faces to compare, no profiles to evaluate, no illusions to chase, only you, raw, unfiltered, undistracted, and that can be terrifying. But it is also the doorway back to yourself. You close your eyes, the world dims, and for a brief moment, you feel something strange, something you haven't felt in a very long time, your own presence. It's faint, soft, like a candle flickering in a dark room, but it's there. You realize you've been searching for connection without being connected to yourself. You've been seeking depth while living on the surface. You've been craving intimacy while running from the intimacy of meeting your own truth. You inhale a slow, trembling breath. You feel the weight of it, and in that breath, you notice something. You've been holding tension for years, maybe decades, a quiet tightening behind your ribs, beneath your thoughts, beneath every attempt to find someone who could make you feel whole. You exhale, the tension softens, and suddenly the world feels quieter, not empty. Quiet. There is a difference. Emptiness is a hunger. Quiet is a doorway. The descent deepens. Memories rise. Not dramatic ones, not painful ones, just small echoes. Times you chose distance over vulnerability. Times you let something fade because trying felt too risky. Times you retreated inward and called it independence. Times you felt something real and walked away because real was too demanding. You see these moments not with judgment but with understanding, because you were not avoiding others. You were avoiding yourself, avoiding the parts of you that felt too tender, too uncertain, too easily hurt. Infinite choice gave you a way to outrun that tenderness, to stay in motion, so you never had to feel the fragile edges of your own heart. But now, in this stillness, you feel them. You feel everything. The ache, the longing, the confusion, the quiet hope you tried so hard to bury. You realize the loneliness you feared was never coming from others. It was coming from the distance between you. And then something shifts, not dramatically, not loudly. A soft shift, a whisper in the dark. You realize you don't need more choices. You need more presence. Presence with yourself. Presence with your emotions. Presence with a small, subtle truth. That connection begins, not with seeking, but with seeing. Seeing who you are, beneath the hunger, beneath the longing, beneath the noise. You begin to notice your own breath, not the idea of breath, the actual movement, the rise, the fall, the warmth of being alive. You begin to notice your own thoughts, not as commands, but as clouds drifting, passing, dissolving. You begin to notice your own heart, not the one that analyzes, not the one that compares, not the one that chases, but the one that simply feels. This is the descent, the peeling away of illusion, the unraveling of the story you build around yourself, a story made of motion, a story made of distraction, a story made of fear disguised as freedom. In the descent, you touch a deeper truth. You cannot love when you are not present. You cannot connect when you are not here in your breath, not here in your body, not here in your awareness. You spent so long searching outward that you forgot the one thing you were truly missing: your own company. Not the company of the ego, not the identity built for others, not the persona crafted for attention, but the quiet self, the one who sits behind your thoughts, the one who watches, the one who feels, the one who has been waiting for you to slow down, to stop, to listen. And in that listening, something miraculous happens. The loneliness softens, not because you found someone, not because someone found you, but because the distance between you and yourself begins to close. You return to yourself, like someone coming home after years of wandering, and it feels unfamiliar, but warm, strange, but safe, new, but ancient. For the first time in a long time, you feel whole. Not because anything changed outside, but because something awakened inside. And this awakening is the beginning of liberation. A liberation not from the world, but from the illusions that kept you running through it. A liberation not from loneliness, but from the belief that someone else must fix it. A liberation not from choice, but from the weight of infinite possibility. And so, with a quiet exhale, you take one step deeper into stillness. The descent becomes soft, gentle, almost tender, as if awareness itself is holding you, as if the silence is no longer empty, but alive, as if you are no longer searching, but finally seeing. And in this clarity, this stillness, this deep inward gaze, you are ready. Ready for the final movement, the quiet transformation, the soft revelation. Liberation does not arrive with fireworks. It does not burst through the door. It does not announce itself. It appears the way dawn does. Quietly, almost shyly, a pale light spreading across a landscape that was always there, but forgotten in the dark. You feel it first. Gelas a loosening, a gentle untying of knots you didn't know you'd been holding. You wake one morning and realize the ache in your chest has softened, not disappeared, but eased. Like a fist unclenching, you move through your day with a different kind of weight, not heavy, but grounded, present. There is no revelation yet, just space, room to breathe, and then, slowly, you notice the strangest thing. You don't feel lonely in your own company anymore. The silence no longer threatens you. The stillness no longer frightens you. The absence of noise no longer feels like abandonment, because something has returned to you. Something small, something honest, something you didn't realize. You had lost yourself, the version of you that doesn't need an audience, that doesn't need validation, that doesn't need infinite choice to feel alive. The version of you that exists even when no one is watching. You begin to see how much of your search was never about love, never about connection, never about another person. It was about filling the hollow spaces left by your own absence. But now you are here, present, quiet, awake. And with this presence comes clarity, a clarity so soft, it feels like a whisper, more than a thought. You cannot love from hunger. You can only love from wholeness and infinite choice. The endless scrolling, the endless comparing, the endless searching was feeding your hunger, not your heart. For so long, you believed the next profile might save you, might complete you, might silence the ache. But liberation arrives when you see the truth. No one can complete a self you haven't met yet. And so you stop searching outward, not with defiance, not with cynicism, simply with peace. You still see faces, you still see possibilities, but they no longer blur together into a storm of longing, because now you meet each person with awareness, not hunger, with presence, not expectation, with stillness, not desperation, You don't chase the spark. You don't cling to the possibility. You don't panic at the idea of missing something better, because you finally understand deeply, quietly, undeniably, if something is meant for you, it won't require you to fracture yourself to receive it. Liberation is not the end of desire. Liberation is the end of being ruled by it. You notice the paradox, the one all seekers eventually find. When you stop searching, connection becomes possible. Not because surrender brings someone to you, but because surrender brings you back to yourself. And it is only from yourself that you can truly meet another. You sit in a quiet room, maybe morning, maybe night. It doesn't matter. You feel the air on your skin. You feel your breath, moving gently like a tide. You feel your awareness opening, not outward, but inward. And suddenly, you see clearly. You were never overwhelmed because there were too many people. You were overwhelmed because there were too many versions of who you thought you should be. Too many identities, too many desires, too many fears, too many stories. And beneath all of it, beneath the noise, beneath the hunger, beneath the motion, there was a simple truth waiting. You do not need infinite choice to feel infinite love, because love, real love, is not found in the vastness of possibility, but in the depth of presence. One connection, built slowly, honestly, intentionally, will fill the soul in ways 1,000 matches never could. But even that is not the liberation. Liberation is this: the quiet confidence that you are enough, even without being chosen. The gentle strength that you can stand still without collapsing. The soft understanding that your worth is not tied to visibility, attention, or abundance. You see the world again, the real world, not the glowing marketplace of faces and fantasies. You notice the way light falls on the floor, the way wind moves through leaves, the way your breath enters and leaves your body. You return to life as it is, simple, unfiltered, uncurated. And in that simplicity, something beautiful emerges. Peace. Not the peace you try to earn through control, through achievement, through being chosen, but the peace that arrives when nothing is missing, because you are finally here, when you stop running from stillness, when you stop escaping your own presence, when you stop searching for something outside to fill something lonely inside. The paradox becomes clear. You were lonely because you abandoned yourself while looking for someone else. But now, in this moment, you are no longer gone. You inhabit your body, your breath, your awareness. And with this return comes a revelation, so gentle it feels like waking up from a long dream. When you stop seeking peace, it finds you. And in that peace, love, real love, finally has space to enter, not as a pursuit, not as a fix, not as an escape, but as a meeting between two whole beings. Two present beings, two aware beings, and now you are one of them.